course, starting to align with your true self and starting to align with your authenticity and allowing yourself to communicate in ways around certain things that you actually feel, okay? Not censoring yourself to what do they want me to say, what do they think is appropriate for me to say, or what do I think is appropriate? How is there a way that I can just communicate and say things how I actually see them and how I actually feel them, and be willing to embrace some of the darker energy that I might encounter from being able to be this authentic? What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Universal Mastery. Welcome back to my public YouTube channel. Today we have a very, very interesting subject that I'm sure a lot of people are going to gain significant amounts of value from, okay? In today's video, we are going to be discussing seduction. How exactly can you authentically be seductive towards whoever it is that you are wanting to attract into your life? What does it even mean to be authentically seductive? And how can we also incorporate some of the darker aspects of our own human nature, some of the more demonic components, to help us improve our ability to be seductive in a natural way in our everyday life? So in this video, I'm going to be discussing this as our main subject, and I'm also going to be sharing some personal experiences within my own life of how I've subdued different people into my life to be attracted to me based on certain behavior patterns that I was displaying that clearly were attractive and seductive. All right, if this is something that you want to know a little bit more about, you simply have one thing left to do, and that is to stay tuned, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so let's first start with me giving a little bit of an introduction just so that you know who I am, so that you know who you're getting this information from. Okay, that's important. It always creates a little bit of a context. My name is JeremiahJSchwartz. I am a professional occultist. I am fully initiated in the entirety of the Kabbalistic tree. I'm studied when it comes to the 22 major arcana of the tarot deck. I'm studied when it comes to planetary energies in association with astrology, and I'm also aware of trauma and its relationship to the nervous system. Okay, so let's go ahead and move right into it. So in today's video, we are talking about seduction. So how can you actually completely seduce someone and reel them into your life, reel them into your reality, and basically get them to a point where they are head over heels in regards to you, okay? Attracted to you on that level. Is this even possible? And the answer to this question is yes. I, on a personal level, display this in my everyday life. There are many properties of my own behavior that I've been able to work through that allows me to be seductive in this type of way. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone is necessarily going to be seduced by me or completely attracted to me, but there definitely are a large portion of people that are, especially certain types of people that I want to be attracted to me. So for me specifically, I'm attracted to women. So there's a lot of good-looking, attractive women that I know how to seduce and bring into my reality so that they are in many ways attracted to me. Now, the reason why this is because there are certain behavior properties that I have and that I allow myself to display that I've been able to cultivate from doing some of the deeper work within my deep subconscious and unconscious mind, and also in many ways being able to rewire my nervous system to have some of these capabilities. So this wasn't necessarily something I was completely born with. This is stuff that I had to learn over time through intention and through interest, and consistency in actual practice. Now, I'm going to be sharing a lot of these keys in this today's video, and I'm also going to be discussing generally, like on a mass collective level, what is what is seductive for most people, okay, especially in our modern times. And this is only growing in momentum as time goes on. Once again, what I'm also going to be throwing in as a little spice within this today's video is the darker aspect of energy itself that plays a big proponent within the ability to be seductive towards other types of people. Okay, so this is exactly what we're talking about. So let's go into it right off the bat. Okay, seduction. All right, one of the most seductive things that someone can do is allow themselves to be completely authentic to who they actually are and what they're truly feeling. Now, the reason why this is actually so seductive is because a lot of the times there are darker aspects within the self that most people repress because they are trying to approve to some sort of governmental societal system or idea. So there are people that feel certain ways towards certain things that are a little bit more raw and a little bit more primal. And if they were being honest with themselves, they would be able to be vulnerable to share how they actually feel. But because of the way the government is structured, because of the way our society is structured, because of all these different ideas on what is right and what isn't right, people will repress a lot of these quote unquote more raw and primal aspects of themselves, and in many ways disassociate themselves from these parts and say that these parts are not good, so there is no place for this to exist. But in reality, that type of person still has that in them, and if they were being completely authentic, they would have enough of a vulnerability and an ability to feel the emotions of uncomfort to begin the process of expressing those more primal, sometimes darker energy parts of themselves. So one of the most seductive things that you can do is, of course, starting to align with your true self and starting to align with your authenticity and allowing yourself to communicate in ways around certain things that you actually feel, okay? Not censoring yourself to what do they want me to say, what do they think is appropriate for me to say, or what do I think is appropriate? How is there a way that I can just communicate and say things how I actually see them and how I actually feel them, and be willing to embrace some of the darker energy that I might encounter from being able to be this authentic? There is an extremely seductive property for anyone that has this ability. And yes, there is a reason why most people aren't doing this. You will go against the grain when you start to communicate and express in this way. There are going to be people that get triggered. There are going to be people that don't agree with you. There are going to be people that get very upset and disappointed, you could even say. There are people that will abandon you, maybe people that you're associated with. If you haven't done this before, people will abandon you because they may not feel comfortable with this part of yourself or these parts of yourself that are now communicating in a more vulnerable but more raw, primal, and authentic way. Now, once again, there are many powerful properties at play when you are allowing yourself to be vulnerable in that way, because you are being honest with yourself. You are tapping into these deeper parts of yourself, once again, that most people are afraid to tap into. But underneath of that fear and underneath of that anxiety, there is this desire. Okay, this is what's seductive about this. There is a desire within every human being to be authentic, especially when it comes to more so of these primordial parts of ourselves that are a little bit taboo or are a little bit darker. So many people will sit there and tell you, oh no, this is not what I'm attracted to. And the reason why they're saying it is because they've calculated some form of logic to base their own feelings off of the opinions of what society thinks is appropriate, and they're labeling themselves as being good or bad as they're doing this calculation. Oh, I'm not attracted to this crazy psycho chick because that means she's crazy, and that's just not appropriate. And of course, like, society wouldn't agree with me being attracted to this type of girl, so there's no way I'm attracted to her. Like, forget about it. Like, that's just off the table. But in reality, there may be some deeper primordial components within the same person that actually admires this psycho crazy girl, even though she may be a little bit toxic and she might be a little bit crazy. There may be parts within the self that actually admire her ability to be able to express herself in certain ways, even if they are extreme. And that ability to express in that way is quite seductive and quite attractive. So that same person who says, no, I'm not attracted to that, underneath the surface, if they were being authentic, the reality is they may be very attracted to that. They just don't have the courage and the ability within themselves to communicate that honestly. Okay, this goes for a lot of people. This is why there is such a fascination towards the rebellious type, the people that go against the grain. There's just a natural attraction that a lot of us seem to have towards people that do things against the system to an extent, or against the grain. They create and carve out their own paths. Okay, there's an entire realm of attraction towards what people would refer to as the vampire, because these are generally these rebellious, quote unquote, evil beings that are also very intact on a sociable level and on an emotional level, yet they suck blood and they need human life force to survive. But why is there such a deep attraction towards the archetype of the vampire? It's because they are the embodiment of some of these more primordial taboo parts that exist within all of us that we are largely repressing as a society as a whole. So of course that energy is going to attract towards the archetype of the vampire, because this is a way for us to express some of these parts of ourself. Now, of course, not everyone's attracted to vampires, but this was just me kind of giving a little bit of an example. Now, once again, when it comes to dealing with these darker parts of the self, when we're looking at darker energy and we're looking at the demonic realm, there is a direct component to this, because when we are working with demons, or we're working with that degree of dark energy, we are building relationships with these darker, more so primordial parts of the self that in many ways pre-existed our physical incarnation on this earth. So in other words, what I'm saying is some of these demonic energies are so ancient and so old that they were literally around way before Earth was even created, which means when we connect with these energies, they have an influence to flood things from the deepest portions of our unconscious and subconscious mind to bring them to the conscious, which requires us to have a pretty significant capacity to be able to process that degree of unknown energy within the self. So in other words, what this means is that working with some of these darker energies, we actually have to have an ability to feel and to experience and to exist, and even in many ways navigate through dark energy itself, negative, densely charged, heavy energy coming from these spaces of the unknown. Now, just like anything that we do in life, for example, like fitness, when you are breaking down your muscle, going through that uncomfortable process, with time, patience, and consistency, you are building more muscle. You are increasing your power. The same thing is happening when we're working with these darker energies through different types of ritualistic sciences, through invocations, etc. We are increasing our capacity to feel negative energies within our own nervous system, which preps us to be able to express some of the more raw primal parts of ourself, because we already have more of a capacity to deal with some of the potential pushback that we might be getting from society as a whole. And not only that, but we become more knowledgeable on the fact that the more raw we are and honest and authentic we are with ourselves, even if society doesn't agree, even if parents don't agree, friends don't agree, the more we are honoring our true self and the more health that we are going to have because of it, the more wealth we're going to have because of it, the more freedom we're going to have because of it, the more of a better sex life we're going to have because of it. Everything is going to gradually improve. And when you know these things and you allow yourself to express these things that are quite taboo and a lot of people resist, you get to a point where it's like, you know what, I don't really give a fuck how you interpret this. This is what I'm feeling inside of myself. This is what I know to be real for me in this moment. I'm going to express this and I'm going to share this, and ultimately, fuck how you feel. This is what I'm experiencing. What are you going to do about it? Okay? There is something seductive to that. Just that energy alone has people watching this right now, and you're like, damn, like, I wish I knew somebody like that. I wish I, was in a relationship with somebody like that, because then they would give me space to start embracing these parts of myself as well. Okay? So this is how the whole darker energy and demonic realm really can play a significant role in your ability to be seductive. Now, in regards to my personal life, I mean, I am in many respects a master seducer myself. And some of you that understand these things and the core roots of how these things function, you would be able to see that and you would be able to know that. But everything I do with my YouTube channel and everything that I'm doing with my Patreon and these different services that I'm offering when it comes to the Universe B Vampire service, there is an entire seductive realm that is behind what it means to be a Universe B vampire. And of course, like all these different things that I'm talking about, I know them to be real and I know them to be true, and I know they cause significant amounts of energetic change in people's lives when they're using these services. But there's also a seduction to it in the way that I'm able to talk about it, and the way that I speak about how these different occult sciences actually end up having an effect on the person that's receiving it. There's an entire way to really break this stuff down that sounds attractive and that sounds something that's compelling and something that you would want to take advantage of. I mean, I could, for example, I could sell my Universe B vampire service in a way that's just like, oh yeah, this is a ritual that I do and it causes change in your life. Many people have done it before. They got value from it. I think you should try it yourself. Right? Like at its most practical core level, that's what it's doing. It's it causes energetic changes. But the way that I speak about it, I'm entering you into an entire new dimension to understand the actual science of how this occultism works and how this energetic transfer is taking place when you're getting the Universe B vampire service from me, how it's a literal advanced ritual that is an energetic transfer from me to you, and how I am this occultist that exists in many ways in higher density consciousness because of my life experience and even past life experience that gives me the ability to really utilize some of these technologies on other people and get results from it. And then not only is it doing that, but it's entering the person who's receiving the service into a completely different world, really. It's entering them into a completely different dimension where their energetic structure starts changing and it starts servicing these repressed parts of themselves so that they can start feeling them, so that they can start embracing and accepting these more raw primal parts of themselves, and then find healthy ways to express that in an honest way, and then create a completely different momentum and energetic flow within their own life, all from receiving this one Universe B vampire service. Now, are these things that are actually a part of the service? Does this really happen? Absolutely it does. But you can see by the way that I even speak about this and the way that I break this stuff down, this is quite compelling, and it enters you into the dimension that I live in my own life as someone who embraces these parts of myself. Whereas when you go to like a local college and you're learning some form of like academic study, a lot of times you're just sitting there and things are very mechanical. It's like A plus B equals C, 1 plus 2 equals 3. And you're just kind of sitting there and like parts of your mind have to kind of try to tune in. When I'm speaking about the Universe Be Vampire service, how this can change your life, how it can change your energy, how I have an ability to do this energetic transfer, this is something that there are deeper parts of you, even if you're not in resonance with it, that are interested in exactly what it is that I'm saying. You're interested in the fact that I'm even able to sit in front of this camera right now and speak on these things without thinking about, what are my parents going to think of me? What's my friends going to think about me? What's this job going to think about me? I am me, and I'm going to express who I am in the most authentic ways that I know how, regardless. Now, I'm not perfect. There's times where I get a little more closed off and I have to go through some processing to get back in tune, but that's a natural part of the process. But overall, this is what I do. This is what I bring to the table as often as I can and in the most effective way as I can as well. Okay? So this is just a little bit of the personal example, and this is why I have such a thriving business, not only because I'm a professional occultist and I understand a lot of things that people don't understand in regards to how the universe functions, how the deep subconscious and unconscious mind functions, how to reprogram the nervous system, how to get literal extraterrestrial energies and astrological energies to start working with you to help aid you in manifesting what it is that you need and what it is that you want. Not only do I know these things, but once again, the way that I speak and the way that I express myself from going through these transformative processes of real self-development, that's what is so compelling. That's what's really bringing people in. That's people look at me and they're like, I want that. I want that energy. I want that mindset. I want that degree of freedom to express in that way. That's the selling point. That is what seduced you and brought you in. Okay, and anyone has the potential to tap into this, and the way that I do it very likely will look very different from the way that you do it when you're being completely authentic with yourself as well. Now, once again, I'm going to share some personal examples of how I've used some of this more seductive energy in my actual life and how it triggers things within the consciousness of other humans to naturally be gravitated towards what it is that I was doing. So there was actually a point in my life that was back in 2000, what was this? I want to say 2017-ish, when I was getting actually really deep into the art of seduction, and I was trying to learn like all the different nooks and crannies of everything that it was representing and everything that it was about so that I could start doing it. And I don't think that I was doing it completely from an authentic space at that point in time. I feel like I kind of developed a false personality to be able to kind of tap into some of the principles that I was learning, but it ended up becoming a very significant learning experience for me, and it was actually working. So I had entered into almost, we could literally say it like this, a part of myself, almost like an alternative state of being, an alter personality that was specifically designed for seduction. I had like fragmented a part of my psyche to only be a seducer. And in that portion of my life, this went on for like an entire year. In that portion of my entire life orchestrated itself to put me in a position to master seduction. So I ended up working a job at a restaurant where it was literally all women. And it was like, so the restaurant was called Tilted Kilt, and women were wearing pretty much like what women wear when they work at Hooters, right? And I was surrounded by that all day long. I was like one of 3 or 4 guys that worked there. And only 2 of the guys out of the 4 were my age and were like willing candidates to actually attract some of these girls. But I had my entire reality orchestrated to help me master this art of seduction. And what I basically was doing is I was actually displaying a lot of properties within myself that were quite contrary to what most people say is okay to do in order to create attraction. So once again, according to society standards and traditional standards, it's like, oh, you got to be nice, you got to be a gentleman, you got to, be completely monogamous, and you got to take her out to dinner first, and then you sleep, you sleep with each other once you feel comfortable and once that bond is established. And it's not that any of these things are necessarily bad, but this is a lot of societal programming as well. And if you don't agree with that, I mean, that's something that you're going to have to, work on yourself. But a lot of that is societal programming. As much as that might trigger some of you, it just is. So deep down, a lot of people don't actually feel that way. So what I was doing when I was working at this job, not only was I surrounded by attractive women my entire time being there, but I was also talking to another girl that was kind of lived close to where I lived at the same time. So I had all these different girls that I was surrounded with at work, and then I had kind of like a more primary girl that I was actually seeing when I would get off work that kind of lived where I lived. So on my off days, I would hang out with her and stuff. And I remember that when I started hanging out with this girl that lived around where I lived, I knew what I was going into it for. And I knew I was going into it to learn more about how to be seductive and how to embrace these more taboo parts of myself and be open enough to try to express that and see what her reaction would be or see how she receives it. So keep in mind, this was a time in my life where I wasn't completely being authentic. It was it was a little bit of a mask that I was wearing. It was a part that I was allowing myself to be possessed by, but it still played a significant role in teaching me some of the principles of how seduction works. And, with where I am now I have this ability sort of wired in my nervous system from all that study and practice that I did in the past and just work that I've done in general in regards to trauma work and shadow work and all that stuff. Now it comes from a much more authentic space where I don't feel like I'm wearing a mask when I seduce another person in my life. So at that time, though, I was with this girl and we were kind of meeting off of the original terms that this is a date and we are getting to know each other. And I remember on the first date, I took her out to a certain restaurant. I think it was like a Mexican restaurant. And right out the gate, she kind of starts like interviewing me a little bit, like asking me like, what am I into? Kind of checking to see if I was a quote unquote fuckboy. She was asking me, what am I into? What am I looking for in a relationship? Do I sleep with girls on the first date? What are my intentions and all that stuff? And as she was like asking me these questions, there was a part of me that felt like I was being interviewed and that felt like this is getting a little bit too robotic. It's getting a little bit too mechanical. And there's a part of me that's feeling like she's displaying more of a masculine energy or she's trying to display more of a masculine energy than what I have. So there was a more masculine competitive part that started to kind of show itself to her that started displaying, look, I'm not here for an interview. I'm not taking you out to dinner so that you can ask me all these questions. This is not the person that I am. This is who I am. This is what it is. If you like it, then you can stay. If you don't like it, then you can happily go. And I remember her asking those questions, and pretty much my answers to most of them were the complete opposite of what it was that traditionally she was wanting to hear. So I remember her literally saying, so, do you need to be in a relationship before you sleep with your partner? And I told her right out the gate, I was like, no, that's not truly how I feel regardless. That's not what I believe. I don't think I should be in a relationship before I have to sleep with my partner. I feel like I need to sleep with someone in order to understand the sexual connection that we have before I even consider entering into a relationship with whoever that person was. And I told her, I said, look, I will not wait to have sex before me and you are dating. I was very clear with her. I was like, this is something that I require in order for us to even be more serious and for me to keep taking you out. It's just something that I need, I need for myself. And it's something that I find that is very important for me. And I remember her like seeing her face when I said that. And it was like, the way she worded it was almost as if she was waiting for me to kind of give her the response that she wanted, which was, yeah, I would totally wait. And I remember I said exactly what she didn't, quote unquote, on the surface want to hear, but underneath, I saw something light up in her and she was intrigued. She was interested in me. She was like so much more attracted to me and seduced by me because I expressed how I actually felt about the situation, and I was willing to go against her preconceived belief system of what she said she wanted, but I was being more honest with myself and saying, this is how it is, and this is what it's going to be with us if we're even going to be a thing. And that displayed like this heavy masculine energy, and it displayed that I'm in tune with some of these more vulnerable and darker parts of myself, that I'm willing to express that and not care that there might be some pushback. So she heard that and she kind of questioned what it is that I said. And I said, yeah, this is just, if I'm going to be honest with you, this is how I'm feeling about this. And I understand if that's something that you don't want, or if that's something that you don't appreciate. And that's fine. That just means we're not going to be, we're not going to work together. But I just want you to know up front that I'm not in this to wait to have sex and then for us to get into a relationship. Like, that's not going to happen with me. Okay. As long as you know that, then we're good to go. And when I displayed that, she was very attracted to that. Now, there even came a time when she was asking about monogamy. So what are your beliefs, Jeremiah, on, if we're going to be talking, right? That's kind of like how she was wording it. She's like, okay, if we're going to be talking, then that means I'm your only priority, right? That means I'm the only girl that you're talking to, right? I kind of want to lay the boundaries down, right out the gate. And once again, I told her, I said, look, if we're going to be talking, I want you to know that you're absolutely going to be the primary girl that I'm focused on and that I'm giving my time and attention to. But as a man, and knowing myself as the man that I am specifically, I do not see myself cutting myself off from being able to communicate with other women and allowing myself to have that level of feminine energy in my life from other women just for one person. I don't see myself ever doing that. And that's honestly not the type of guy that I am. As the man that I am, who's in touch with, a lot of different parts of myself, especially my own masculine energy, I need that level of freedom. And I am willing to give my primary partner the support, the protection, and the emotional connection that no one else will get. But once again, even if that's there, I'm not going to completely close myself off to other women and my ability to flirt with other women and my ability to hang out with other women and potentially sleep with other women. Now, I'm not saying that that's like what I'm looking for. I'm not going to get into a relationship and then just try to sleep with a bunch of other women. For me, it's more about having my masculine power and having the ability to have this degree of freedom with feminine energy itself. That's what I need in my life to feel safe. That's what I need in my life to feel free. And there are absolutely women out there that I know that will appreciate that part of me, that masculine part of me that wants that freedom. And also my honesty to be able to communicate that rather than suppress that and pretend like, oh yeah, I'm completely monogamous with you. And once again, from past life experiences, I, in many respects, know, I don't even, like, this isn't a thought. I know I have past lives where I come from royalty. I've had past life experiences where I've literally seen myself as a king somewhere around the time of the Dark Ages, roughly around 500 years ago. And I remember in those lifetimes, I was the same way in regards to my sexual expression. I had a primary partner. She was the queen to me being the king, but I was also able to sexually express myself with other women while the queen knew who I was, knew what my role was, knew that I loved her and I protected her, and she was comfortable with that. She honored the fact that I was a man in that type of way, and I didn't allow any situations to get in between, our relationship. So for me, the stuff runs pretty deep. It runs on a nervous system level from past lives. So this is something that I also honor, and it's probably one of the reasons why I'm able to communicate this so openly and honestly with people that I get with. But I remember I communicated this to her, and I let her know that, look, once again, I will give you my full time and attention. I will love you, I will protect you, I will respect you, but this is what I'm needing. And for us to be together, I need this degree of freedom. And I want you to know up front that this is the type of guy that I actually am, so that if I get with you, I'm not doing this behind your back. That alone took her from being very serious, very traditional, giving me an interview, and it like snapped something in her psyche. And once again, another layer of entering into my seduction just took place. I said something that she, like, it was like a part of her feared that so much. She was so like resistant to that, but the way that I said it, in the sense of like having my own knowing and boundary of like, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to need from this relationship, and this is what it is. If you don't agree with that, you don't resonate with that, fine, we're not going to work out. She was already attracted to me, and the fact that I was honest with her, she stepped into this dimension with me from a much more vulnerable space. She stepped into a relationship with me that she had never been in before, and it gave her opportunities to work through some of her own insecurities and work through, repressed things within herself, probably connected to the masculine in her life, probably connected to her father, and maybe some, things that were going on between her and her father, where maybe she felt like her father wasn't giving her an emotional connection or wasn't there for her. And maybe that's why she was so stuck on a monogamous relationship, because maybe there was parts of her that felt like maybe she would get abandoned, or maybe she wouldn't get the full emotional attention from her man. But once again, the way that I communicated it, and because I said it in such an honest way, and I was in tune with myself enough to do that, she respected that, she honored that, and she stepped into that with me. We ended up having a relationship together, and I ended up seeing and hanging out with other girls that I was working with while I was in the relationship with this other girl, and I would tell her that I'm about to go hang out with this other girl, and she was completely okay with it. Maybe there was a little part of her that was maybe a little bit like, I don't know about this, but if there was, it was such a small percent. Maybe it was like a 3% at first, where it's like, I don't know, but then it turned into almost like a complete 90, almost like a 99% of like, you know what? I get it. She was like, okay, you know what? The fact that you told me what you're about to do, and that you're being open and at least honest with me, vulnerable with me to communicate this, there was a part of her that was like relieved that like, oh my God, I don't have to worry about him sleeping behind my back and dishonoring me and being a liar. She was like, oh my God, like you openly communicated you're about to see another girl. I already know that you've communicated that things could get to the point where you end up sleeping with her, but you're still present with me. You're still protecting me. You're still supporting me. You're emotionally there for me. You're protecting me, and you're honest with me. You know what? Forget it. Like, go ahead, be the man that you are. That's fine with me. And that's exactly what I did. I ended up hanging out with another girl, and, things kind of went to another level as well. And during this time frame, I was really starting to understand, wow, this is like something so interesting, because clearly there are, parts within other people, especially when it comes to seduction, that people are not fully acknowledging and embracing. They say this is what they want, but underneath there are more primal drivers that are at play. And when you touch on those primal drivers, which literally comes down to really understanding what it means to be authentic and honestly communicate that, that is extremely seductive and it's extremely attractive. So I was doing that with her, and then I was doing it with other girls that I was working with. There was just a bunch of girls that were, attracted to me at that time, and I had like all their numbers, and we would hang out and stuff and all that stuff. So I was learning so much about this dynamic, and I was seeing these, I was just so many crazy things. Like I was learning from these girls that I was working with, and a lot of the times, like I guess because I was displaying this energy of being sort of primal and raw and honest and being shameless about it, they were telling me a lot about their relationships with certain guys that they were talking to. And in many of them, the girls were completely manipulating their guys. Like it was just like, yeah, like the way she communicate, like these, like I literally have endless stories, but there was all these girls that I was working with, and when I got close to them, they were starting to openly communicate like their more primal aspects of what they were doing with their guys. And a lot of them had their guys wrapped around their finger, like, I'm playing this guy right now. And that showed me even more that, wow, like, this is wild. That, like, you know, girls and guys in general, it's like we have these primal parts of ourselves and we're trying to get these needs met. And it's the reality is most people aren't touching that, especially when it comes to the woman and the man dynamic, where a lot of men think I got to be the chivalrous knight, white knight, you know, nice guy, gentle, calm, in order to attract, you know, a woman into my life, or keep a woman, or have a wholesome woman. When in reality, that's not, most of the times, that's not even the case. Women are very attracted to qualities of being dangerous, qualities of being able to step into the unknown, taking risks, but also the balance of that gentle, of that kind, of that calm. So can you basically ride the wave and honor all those different parts of yourself that are dangerous, conquer, know who you are, stand your ground, but also be flexible, be receptive, be adaptable, be gentle, right? So if you can honor those things, then you're going to be a lot more holistic and you're going to have much more of a seductive nature to you. But especially when it comes to knowing yourself and being able to say, like, this is who I am and I'm not budging who I am. Like, I'm going to bring this to the table regardless. So yes, in high school, in 10th grade, I ended up getting into a relationship with a girl for 3 years, and I was in a completely monogamous relationship with her. I had girlfriends, like actual friends that were girls. And I remember that underneath, if I was being very honest, I was attracted to a lot of these girls that I was friends with. And I was almost shaming myself for being attracted to these other girls while I was in the relationship. And I stayed completely monogamous that entire 3 years with her. And I remember there was many fights that we ended up getting into in high school because you know, there would be times where I'd be hanging out with girls in the hallway, having like conversations about certain things. And then my girlfriend would like come around the corner and she'd see me talking to another girl. And then it became like she got jealous and she was feeling like, you know, I'm caring about another girl more than her. And it would start these arguments. And I lived that life. I went through that for 3 years. And at the end of that relationship, there was so much built up resentment. And literally, I think what actually ended up separating us was me being resentful and angry that my girlfriend at the time was like sort of talking to another guy, or, you know, there was a story that I think she like danced with a guy at some party or something. I don't know if it's 100% true. It might be true, but regardless, there was a resentment of like, how dare you, you know, do this thing that you're always getting upset at me for doing, or you know, you're always upset with me when I express this part of myself. And I ended up ending that relationship, and you know, that took me on a journey of self-discovery, and you know, there was a lot of other components there, but I learned from being in a 3-year monogamous relationship that was very intimate that that was not my true nature. That was not who I truly am as a man. And I know what I want as a man. And, you know, even when it comes to the relationship dynamic between the man and the woman, there are a lot of differences there. Okay. Men are not nearly as emotionally involved when it comes to sexual encounters with other people, whereas women tend to get a lot more emotionally involved because of the differences between the biological nature. So if I could have went back in time, what I would have said to her is I would have been like, look, I am the type of man that if we're going to be in a relationship together, I am not going to suppress certain parts of myself that need to express in order for me to have this sense of masculine power and masculine freedom. I am going to talk with other girls. I am going to flirt with other girls. I will potentially sleep with other girls while I'm in a relationship with you, but I'm going to communicate this to you so that you know who you're getting in a relationship with. And I want you to know that I'm going to love you the most. I'm going to protect you the most. I'm going to be emotionally involved with you the most. And that's the type of man that I am. If this is something you want, let's go ahead and move forward. If this is something you don't have capacity for, I completely understand. Let's go our separate directions before we go any farther. Because the last thing that I'm ever going to do again is suppress these parts of myself, especially these more royal parts of myself, where I understand the power of my own masculine energy. And you know, I can already tell, like, certain people listening right now might be like, okay, well, do you allow your woman to do the same thing? No, because I'm a man. Once again, the male to female dynamic is very different between the female to male dynamic. Now, if there's people that want to experience that and you want to be in a relationship where you can sleep with anyone you want as the man and the woman can do the same thing, by all means, go ahead and experience that. But in my reality, that's not something that will work long term, just because I don't feel like, well, for me especially, there's no way that I would be able to allow my main partner to be sleeping with other guys and want my partner to be sleeping with other guys if they're going to be with me. That's just my natural protective nature and my, you know, masculine containment nature. Like, I want to contain my partner. I want to, in a healthy way, own them so that I can protect them and I can support them and, you know, be there to bring certain degrees of structure. So that is the way that I perceive this. And, you know, as taboo as this sounds to a lot of people, there are many in my dynamic, there are many women that really find that seductive. Not only seductive, they find that super attractive and they are wanting that in a guy. But obviously it takes a certain type of guy to be able to express that degree of his authenticity. So you have to do a lot of inner work in order to get to that point where you're able to honor that. But once again, regardless, man or woman, see, I'm speaking a lot from my dynamic being a man, there are these primordial properties within us that when we express them and when we display them, these things can be very attractive to men in general. Okay, so like a woman who is very, you know, closed off sexually, right? A woman who's very like, oh no, I don't express myself sexually. I like to cover myself up and look really petite and nice. Yes, to some men that's going to be important, or they're going to think that's important, but to a woman who's able to also have that side of her where she's able to honor her sexuality and is able to express herself in whatever way that comes out, by maybe dressing a little bit more sexy or dressing in a way that she knows is going to seduce a man. If that woman knows what she's doing and she's not like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this because this is what I like for myself. If she knows that this is tapping into the more primordial nature of human consciousness and that this is actually what men are looking for on a deep level, she can use that to her advantage to attract men into her life. Okay, not saying that she has to be a slut or that she has to, you know, completely create an OnlyFans and, you know, put herself out in that way. Nothing wrong with that. You know, there's a time and a place for that. But if she has an ability to be in touch with that side of her nature while also having the balance of knowing how to contain herself and how to not display herself in those sexual ways. Okay, so it comes back down to that principle of having that inner balance of sometimes I'm like this and sometimes I'm like this, depending on the, you know, the emotional waves that we all experience. See, so many people are holding themselves at a certain frequency or at a certain wave, a certain point on that wave, and they're afraid to dip down deeper into some of those darker, more uncomfortable proponents because of judgment, because of they're afraid to feel what, you know, what's inside of themselves, whether it's fear, anxiety, etc. All right, so this is exactly what it is: seduction. These are some of the powerful components of seduction. You know, I've given my own personal experience working with a lot of this stuff. Definitely make sure you consider some of these things that I'm talking about because, of course, it's very valuable. With that being said, I'm going to wrap it up. I got to make this quick because I got some food cooking. If you want to take advantage of my vampire service, check out, it's the first link in that YouTube description. Tier number 3 and 4 gives you access to the Universe B Vampire Ritual, which is a real-life occult ritual that I perform on the active participant. Look into it if you resonate. Second link, one-on-one calls or the mentorships. If you want to book a mentorship with me, start embracing some of these darker aspects of yourself, start understanding some of these darker aspects of yourself, going into some of the trauma, helping you create a foundation, and then eventually transitioning into some of the occult stuff. Second link below, look at that. Second link, at that same second link, I should say, you can also book a tarot card reading with Alexia, who's a very gifted tarot card reader. She can help you understand your current circumstances. Okay, so check that out. All that's in the second link. Third link is the LUCIFERS Foundation course. If you're someone trying to develop a powerful relationship with Lucifer, this course is for you. A lot of people have purchased it. A lot of people are continuing to buy it. Definitely look into it if you're interested. Fourth link, YouTube membership. Become a YouTube member. I love to see the YouTube members give special shout outs, have a group of familiar faces, all these cool things, all at that fourth link below. Final fifth link is all the book recommendations you need. This is a 4 ebook bundle in one purchase for $128 that gives you everything you need to know to understand the general fundamentals of occult initiation and all these different energies that you're going to be working with, channeling, and communicating with. Definitely look into it. It is that fifth link below. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up here. I hope you all have an amazing rest of the day or night, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.